Hey guys, it's Owen. It's been a moment since I posted something. Um, Man, there's so many little things to talk about. It's November 29th, I believe, right now. Saturday. The energy is so funny right now. There's like a lot of excitement, a lot of opportunity, a lot of like things to create, so many ideas, like too many ideas, stuff I want to do. Um, Also, some like crossroads, um, it feels like everything is kind of like in the balance. Everything is like not in like a precarious way, but just like all doors are open, and yet, like on a macro scale, like it's like the whole world is just like ready to explode, ready to fall apart, all sorts of weirdness. So what am I doing right now? I'm in my warehouse. This is my roastery, coffee roastery. Here's my coffee roasting machine where I roast coffee. My coffee company is Cafe de Paraiso. Just like little intro here. These are a bunch of coffee bags that I sell at the local farmers market, which I was supposed to go to today, but I thought I totally misread apparently the days off for this farmers market, because I've been there like every Saturday except for the days where they're closed, without missing like one market or something in like years. And but like I thought that they weren't going to do it today. So anyway, long story short, yeah, I ended up missing that market. But so right now, what am I doing? I'm basically trying to make my Saturday productive. I've got a bunch of boxes here, a bunch of empty boxes, lots of stuff to bring in. My trunk of my car is just full of stuff. I've been stocking up on cardboard. I use these for, there's someone in town who I buy these boxes from for like $1 a cardboard box. Would you believe it? So there's companies that make cardboard boxes near my office, and they would charge for a box like this. They would charge maybe like, I don't know, $3-4 per box or something like that. Even like a tiny box, like something like this size here, they would charge like $2.50 at least for a small box this size. And because I ship coffee that's kind of that size, I need a lot of those boxes for just locally shipping coffee to people that order it, if it's not easy for me to drive there. And so it's expensive. But anyway, so big boxes cost more. Someone in town, I can get them for like $1 a box, even some small ones, like all these ones I got for $1 each, which I thought was amazing. And I really like shipping stuff. I like shipping things to people. I like selling things. I like buying stuff to then sell it later. I did that a lot during like COVID. I would buy things at like Target, like sports cards, Pokemon stuff, and of course doing my coffee business too. But anyway, so yeah, so I'm in the business of buying stuff and selling stuff. And honestly, like, who isn't? Like, aside from the people who actually make things, but even people who make things, they're buying a raw material product. Like me, for example, I buy this raw material coffee product of green coffee beans, which look like, these here are green coffee beans, unroasted. They don't all look exactly the same, but this is fairly, accurate to what they look like. I'll show you some actual beans I have here. These are green coffee beans. These ones are Brazilian. Look at that. Gorgeous Brazilian coffee beans. And they smell kind of like a mix of like bread dough, like wet grass sometimes, and hay, kind of carby, like a raw bread dough mixed with those things. But anyway, so what people do is they'll buy a raw material product, they'll add some value to it, and then they'll sell the thing. The value add in the case for my coffee business is I roast it with this machine here. That's just a towel sitting over the vents in the back, just to kind of prevent dust from getting in there. But yeah, so that's coffee. I roast the beans. Of course, I like, certain skills. You need a machine to kind of do it efficiently. Mine's bigger, so I can roast more per hour than a smaller machine, so kind of better economy of scale than if I had a smaller one. If I had an even bigger one, I'd have even better economies of scale. So yeah, that's like kind of what a lot of business is, unless what you're selling is sort of like a skill, like the do of a service. Like I also do web design, I do SEO, I do graphic design, I could do business consulting as well. Worked with a lot of small businesses in the course of my web design career. But so yeah, so I, if I'm buying something like sports cards or Pokemon or Magic trading cards from a store like Target or wherever I buy it from, usually it's a box store. Mostly in the past I bought it from Target. But when you buy something like that, trading cards or honestly anything, and then you say you're buying it with the intention of later on selling it for some higher value, which you could call like flipping. If you buy stuff at garage sales, or you buy stuff, let's say like today on Facebook Marketplace, I was talking to someone who buys stuff by buying what do you call it, like abandoned storage units. You buy that stuff and then you sell it, and you're technically flipping, purchasing the thing, flipping it. You could say someone who invests in a home for the sake of buying and selling it, they're flipping houses, right? But any big box store, even the grocery stores people buy things from, those stores are simply glorified flipping operations. They're just buying something and flipping it. They're buying it. Flipping means you're buying it and then you're selling it and you're making some money out of that transaction. You bought it for, say, $100, you sell it for $150, or you made $50, subtracting, any kind of like seller fees and stuff like that. So yes, that's flipping. It's a noble kind of business. It really just means you're adding some value potentially. Maybe the value you added is you just bought it and you're sitting on the thing for a while, like storing it. In the case of retail arbitrage, you buy something at a certain price, and maybe it's a store that is they need to get rid of inventory, right? So they have it on clearance. You help them clear their shelves, and in exchange, now you have a product that has accrued value over some amount of time, and you now can sell that thing. Like, there's some things, for example, was it like recently I bought something was available on Amazon. It was so it was this trading card game, Magic the Gathering. They do IP partnerships. They did one with Lord of the Rings. They had like a starter kit. Magic is something I like, by the way. I used to do it in high school, and then got out of it for a long time. And then COVID, just like everybody else, you're sitting around at home, you look at, okay, what board games do I have? And so I started getting back into Magic, and there were some starter decks that I'd bought that were like $20 at Walmart. This is back when I would go to those stores more. I'm sort of if you know me and you know my other videos, I'm kind of like not into buying things from big corporations, but also at the same time, we're not in the new future society yet where it's easy to get the products in other places, right? It's like in my hometown, Walmart moved to town, and then all the small businesses closed, right? So there's probably a lot of businesses that would exist today if there wasn't a Costco and a Walmart and a Target and these other things, right? So the goal is we're trying to incrementally get to the place we want to be. We want to vote with our dollars for good companies, for local businesses, right? in the case of trading cards, you want to do it from like, you want to support your local game stores owned by people that support community and doing things in person. It's a recreational activity. But at the same time, you know, if you're doing retail arbitrage, all these big corporations, they have so much waste, right? So, you know, if they're probably losing money when they have something really cheap available, like, you know, I think it was Amazon was selling this one Magic the Gathering, starter kit of Lord of the Rings. They were selling it for like $15 a pop, which normally retails at like $25. So I actually bought like 35 of them because I knew they were undervalued, and lo and behold, those items are now like $65. So, you know, my plan is now I'm going to start selling those back out, and in exchange, you know, I've made a little bit of money. So that's flipping, right? Anyhow, so I'm just sort of documenting what I'm doing right now. I'm in this warehouse. I just bought these wire racks to store stuff. I have a lot of like just boxes of things at my house, in my garage and upstairs. I want to get those out of there, move them into my office, kind of just to clear up some space. I like the idea of kind of minimizing, but I also like the idea of like any of these items, for example, that I have that I want to sell and, you know, to like flip that maybe I'd purchased at some point in time in the past, to make a little bit of money, which is it's just something fun I like to do. Like I said, I like buying stuff, selling stuff, and I love mailing things to people that people like, they want to buy. And so I am in the business right now of just loving cardboard boxes and trying to organize my stuff. So basically I can, besides using my office to ship coffee when I get coffee orders, I want to also be able to just do my shipping stuff in my office as well, because it's just very convenient. You know, I've got my tape, got my supplies, got nice tables where I can kind of prep things to ship, and I can just go to the post office and mail my my coffee orders along with, you know, any like eBay orders or stuff like that I have. And also, let's say I get, you know, Facebook Marketplace orders, I can tell people they can meet me at my office too. So anyway, that's kind of what I'm doing right now. Did I clear out all the boxes in the back of my car? I think so. Yes, I did. And so a lot of my other videos, I've been talking about basically how to make the world a better place by buying things locally from small businesses. That is totally my jam, and I totally believe that is a way for us to change the world and make it a better place. And I think more people should be buying things from local businesses, supporting local businesses that are run by people and not by corporations. Right now I'm turning on this little space heater to heat up my coffee roasting machine because I need to roast some coffee for a local coffee shop that ordered some of my coffee beans. So I am just holding the heater like close to the back of my roasting machine, because there's like a little, to start it up, there's this little like heat coil that like electrically, kind of like a toaster, heats up, and I think it makes a spark, and it sparks like a flame on a range to start a fire inside the roasting machine, which is kind of like an oven. And that's just how it starts. And it has to be, if it's really cold right now, ambient temperature is like 70 degrees in here. But I like to have it like a little bit warmer just to help make sure that it starts up. And I also like to heat up the these like what do you call these? I don't know, little turbines or something. This one is a fan. This one runs the gearbox. The gearbox is right here. So they're basically little motors is what they are. Little motors, single phase motors, one gear, just doing their thing, keeping making my coffee roasting machine work. That's what it does. That's the magic right there. So I'm gonna turn this puppy on. Right now, even if I hit the start button, nothing's gonna happen. So come around here and turn this guy on. So now the power's on my roasting machine. It's loading, and then it's gonna say the temperature, and that temperature is the temperature of the heat coil in the front of my machine. Not that everyone wants to know the technical details of how this thing works. So 66 degrees, that's kind of the internal temperature of the heat probe in the machine. So I could heat up the front of the machine to heat that up a bit, but the main thing is these motors, because these guys do all the heavy lifting, and this guy turns the gearbox, which then rotates the drum inside the roasting machine. So basically this thing's like a big dryer and a big oven at the same time. It's like an oven because it gets up to like 400 degrees, but it's also like a dryer just simply because it's got a drum inside that rotates, like almost like it's basically a rotisserie, but the drum is moving so that the coffee beans inside are kind of constantly rotating, so they don't get, roasted on one side and are green on the other, which will happen if you just, like if you try to roast coffee beans that are raw on a pan, they'll just roast on one side. So that's why coffee roasting machines work the way they do. It's this little rotatey bit. This machine is it's pretty analog in the sense that I don't have like a computer hooked up doing like advanced like temperature profiling. Instead, what I do is I just understand the machine and know what it's doing. So the temperature probe, which is this little wire here, it just says what this temperature is here, and I just follow the profile during the roast. I kind of have already, done enough thousands of batches, hundreds of batches initially, just to kind of like figure out, okay, what's the good way to roast on this machine. So I figure that out, and then I have like a repeatable process, and it's just kind of like automatic for me. Like you get in a car and just driving down the street is automatic, like knowing what to do, how to operate the brakes and the gas. I've just used that machine enough. I just know what I want it to do and what outcome I want to get. Here's my fancy printer. Gotta power that guy up. Yeah. So this is me in my office here, my coffee roastery. Here's a little logo on the door, CDP Coffee. It's a abbreviation for Cafe de Paraiso. Whew. So yeah, here we are, the day after, 2 days after Thanksgiving, the day after Black Friday. I've got some boxes of stuff that I want to open up. Some things I ordered. Man, this big box. Ooh. This big box I ordered from Costco. I think this has 30 decks inside in little boxes, which I bought not too long ago. And I bought them because they were a good deal. Trading cards have a marketplace. People, certain cards go up and down in value, go up and down in demand, and it's just a thing that, just like any marketplace, if you understand enough, you know how to sort of take advantage of it. And yeah, actually that is exactly what this is. So I'll show you. So this is a bunch of Magic the Gathering, Outlaws of Thunder Junction, Grand Larceny Commander decks with like 4 packs and some promo and a promo card, I think. And I got like, I don't know, 20 of those or something, maybe 30. Let's see, how many did I get? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 20 in this box, so maybe I just got 20 of them. Yeah, and for some reason, there's some of the cards in there went up in value. I was expecting to have to sit around with just this thing sitting in my garage for like some years before it goes up in value, but apparently there were some popular cards in that commander deck, so now that commander deck used to be like $40, now it's like $100. So plan is to sell that slowly, make my money back and then plus some. And I guess, that's the business of flipping stuff. So, yeah, this is just sort of a long video, but I'm just chilling. I had this realization that, what's important is, I think, at least for me personally, with doing YouTube stuff, with just, being a human in this world, I think it's important that I just, speak my mind, that I just share my thoughts with the world. And in terms of YouTube, like, yeah, if, I'm not making a living with YouTube right now, right? Making a living is coffee roasting and building websites for people, doing SEO for websites for small businesses that I work with, and a little bit, buying some things and then selling those things, hopefully for more money than what I bought them for, right? So, I don't know, the day in the life of me, small business owner, entrepreneur, and also this is just me kind of sharing my thoughts with the world. I have a lot of things to talk about. I also want to talk about my buy local small business revolution idea, right? This concept of, I've talked a lot about it in my other videos, basically that, concentration of wealth is really led to our government not working for us. And, it's not the fault of any one specific class of people. It's just this sort of natural creeping of, like, let's say, something more and more just happening over the course of time. There's that concept of, like, the destruction of the commons, where something is available to everyone and then something slowly happens over time that makes it, like, less and less good for everybody, or being taken advantage of more and more. And I think in the United States, it's this idea that, I guess, that we've been a country really for entrepreneurs and for businesses. That's kind of been our, like, the flag we wave. We don't have, like, this deep history. If anything, we have a deep history of, like, rebellious business owners trying to save money, trying to pay less taxes to, let's say, England, right? And trying to do their own thing, trying to take advantage of these resources that we have, sort of a manifest destiny of, like, hey, it's there, let's expand into nature. You could say, yeah, nature seemed infinite, resources seemed infinite, opportunity, taking advantage of opportunity, and I think a little bit this idea of like, what is it, how do you say, like, that you win on the merits of your actions, like a merit-based system. Meaning, I think it was like my great grandfather had been told that, you could just ride your horse out from Chicago into the West, and then once the grass touches the belly of your horse, then you can jump off and just claim that land and just settle it, right? Kind of like Oregon Trail style, where you just go out and you're like, this is my land now. And then over generations, that property had to be divided up amongst all the kids. And I think that was in, like, Idaho. True story. And then they moved to, like, Nebraska. And anyway, that was, like, one side of my family. I think that was my mom's mother's grandfather. So anyhow, what am I saying? So United States, mass culture, economy, sort of get yours, sort of, it's a little bit rugged independence, kind of like, Western cowboy, get what you can, just, like, so much opportunity, so much, if you can just do it, make it happen, then then like sort of you deserve whatever comes to you, right? But it was also a history of, I guess, the history written by the people who won, right? The history of the people in power, the history of the people who made all the money, the people who weren't taken advantage of, who died of disease or, couldn't feed themselves, or who, died building the railroad or mining, or, the folks who didn't win, like Howard Zinn wrote these books, The People's History of the United States, and lots of other books about, people's movements. And I think that's a little bit understated, actually a lot understated in U.S. history. We like to, I think it's because the U.S. government is, the controller of U.S. public education. I think that's why we don't hear that many like real stories in which, people are getting screwed over by, the man or the government. Like we definitely hear it in the case of Native Americans. That's like, genocide is a hard thing to kind of like gloss over. So it's mentioned, but it's also kind of like falls under this category of, things had to happen that way. Like, the fittest win or the fittest survive. There's so much, pain and suffering, and I think also disinformation built into those stories, and of our history and the history of the peoples who didn't have a chance to write the history books and to have their stories shared. And that's not to say like, we should be, this doesn't mean like, hey, you should be upset, you should be gloomy, you should be depressed, or you should, just be like in shame or something like that. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that all of reality is not disclosed to us by the side that wins. I mean, just think about it. Like, if you watch a story that someone makes about, let's say, being, I don't know, playing a sport, right? Like winning the world championship or at something. There's all sorts of stories about the person who won X, Y, or Z, right? But you don't hear a lot the stories of the people who didn't win. And it's a lot of those stories that are missing. It's usually the people in power that tell this story, that tell the narrative, that, kind of control what we understand. And today in society, that holds true more than ever. This, especially if you watch mainstream media, this story is the story of the winners of our economy. All right, I think my roasting machine is heated up and ready to go. So I'm going to start this up. Turn on my rotator that gets the gearbox going, and then turn on the exhaust. Turn on the burner next. And then it's going to start heating up, and then we'll have I'm going to rotate this. There should be some beans that'll fall out of here. Maybe not. That's all right. Sometimes there's some beans in there that fall out, but anywho, so back to what I was saying. So this story of the stories that we know, the narrative that we hear, our perception of reality, is very much controlled by, well, where do we get our information? And today a lot of our information comes from major corporations, which there's something I realized. Like, I was someone who was very kind of, you could say, kind of anti-corporate for, much of my adult life. Like, I recognize that the big companies don't care about, average people, but I always thought of it as like, those are all just totally separate entities. All these different big businesses, all the big box chain stores, insurance companies, pharmaceutical companies, automakers, um, fast food companies, all the companies that make all our food in the grocery store. You know, we see graphics that say like, oh, you know, there's you know, all the food brands really are just boiled down to, let's say, these 5 companies, right? And then you're like, oh, okay, well, within food there's like 5 companies, but you know, within the whole realm of corporations, it's really this sort of wild jungle where all these different entities are competing against each other. And it's like, we still have this competition thing going on, right? There's still like this free market where the best X wins, and you know, anyone can kind of create a thing that gets successful. Well, it dawned on me when I was thinking about this, when I was talking about in the past this like concept of, you know, billionaires owning like, you know, maybe 60%, maybe even 70% of all stocks in the stock market, like all private equity. And I thought about it too when I was thinking about how, you know, the same people that own the stocks in pharmaceutical companies, they're also invested in the stocks of the pharmaceutical companies and the food companies. So they're, in a way, they're double dipping. They're profiting off of, let's say, that, you know, when people get sick, and they're also profiting when people buy the food that makes them sick. So, you know, because our healthcare industry, the profit motive's upside down. You know, people in medicine, they profit when people are sick, not when people are healthy. So anyway, so I was like, okay, and then connecting those dots, it said to me that actually it's not like this big jungle marketplace of all these different entities that are all kind of competing against each other. It's not really, that's not really what's the reality. The reality is more that there's this small group of people who actually own most of everything, and their investments, like if you think about companies like BlackRock, like huge investment firms, there's maybe like 3 or 4 of them that own like the majority shares of almost all of these major corporations. And so it's not like there's actually this jungle of competition. There are these different business entities trying to make money, but in terms of like power, in terms of buying power, in terms of the ability to control, there's actually, you could think of it really just as like only like 3 companies. Being that there's like these 3 major investment firms owning everything. And think of it, they're kind of like central banks. And they own, you know, it's not just like, oh, the interests of the insurance company only, or even just the insurance company, pharmaceutical company, food companies only. No, it's like every single corporation. They're all owned by the same few entities and the same few people. That doesn't mean they're evil. That's not what this is about. This isn't about, oh, bad people, really powerful. Being powerful does not inherently mean you're bad. The challenge is that it's partly that we have a tax code system that does not allow us to actually tax people for owning and controlling stocks, owning and controlling equity in companies, because we only tax people when they sell their stocks. So like Elon Musk, for example, he doesn't have to pay taxes if he doesn't sell any of his stocks. But even though he doesn't, like, let's say, own his stocks, he didn't sell it, so he can't be taxed on it, he can still use it as collateral to get loans and then make all of his purchases based off of loans. And then if he needs to, he can then essentially trade his stocks to those companies on the loan. Basically, super wealthy people who own stocks don't have to pay taxes. Because they can just get their money off of loans, which you're not taxed on loans. So that's really wild. And, you know, things like our government needing more money for certain essential goods and things. I think I saw this video the other day where it talked about, there was this lady, some like, you know, expert economist discussing that point about taxes and about how something like the wealthiest, small cluster of Americans own about $46 trillion in assets. It's probably mostly wrapped up in stocks, right? Private equity. And the amount of money that the US government was like missing that was added to our, let's say, national debt or something was like $1.4 trillion, right? And yet we have like a very small group of people who own like $46 trillion. And imagine that if you just, of that $46 trillion among those people, it would be a very small amount of tax to get $1.4 trillion out of the few people who really don't need the money. And yet our government is like unable to do it. And so they feel like, hey, we're going into debt more. We just can't find the money. We don't know where it is. It's just, it's a very interesting world we live in, where things don't add up when it comes to the wealthy doing something to help society, but it always adds up and makes sense when it comes to making the average person pay for something. And it's always like the little person doesn't have powerful entities advocating for them, but the really big powerful people always have a helping hand in bailouts and welfare, checks from the government to support whatever they're up to. And it just makes sense, because poor people don't lobby the government, and poor people don't have money to pay for political campaigns, so they don't get political favors. They don't have laws written to help them. So things, long story short, things are tough for the average person, and especially today with inflation. Inflation means people are getting paid less than they were being paid yesterday. What is it? 50 years ago, people used to be able to have a blue collar job, have one person in the family working, the other person just staying at home, making the home, having kids, and you could go on vacations, you could buy a house, and everything's groovy, you can retire. And now it's, if you think about it, like stocks, this concept of wealth, like these sort of modern financial things, we're just told like this is just how it is, like this is just an inexorable fact of how society and the economy needs to happen and run. But this is really an experiment. Like maybe it's a 200-year experiment, but it's still an experiment. And I think what we're finding is, in a society like the United States, where really our ultimate, like, what is of value, what is the goal, the American dream, it's really about trying to make as much money as possible and never having an end to what is it that someone actually needs. And that, we create systems that build wealth and extract profit, but we don't have systems in place that really ensure that communities and that people thrive and have opportunities and get good education and have good health outcomes. There is no system in place to make sure those things happen. And we're at a point basically where our government is not actually serving people anymore. We have a government that's designed to be able to be bought out by whoever has the most money. It is sold to the highest bidder through campaign finance for political campaigns. And it's also sold to, political super PACs that can collect an infinite amount of money. There's no limit, and they can then spend that money towards any political goal with no limit. And that money can be put in anonymously. So essentially it just says we have open bribery legalized in the United States when it comes to every aspect of our government. And so that's just naturally led to the outcomes that we have today. That's why our government doesn't pass laws that support the average person. It's why our government does pass laws that support the average corporation. towards the aim of making those who are really wealthy even more wealthy through, tax abatements, through tax loopholes, through bailouts to large corporations, and not having bailouts for the average person. And even if there are bailouts for the average citizen, they're still not getting paid any living wage. Minimum wage is way too low for people. It's much less now due to inflation than it used to be in, let's say, the 80s or especially the 50s or 60s. So people are just getting paid much less, and we're just told that that's okay. And corporations have made it, easier and easier for themselves to cut corners, to extract profit, to make things more expensive, and to just make us all think that's just how life is supposed to be. And we have these corporate-owned media companies, MSNBC, Fox News, CNN, etc., Wall Street Journal, and those companies that also own all the local news agencies and news channels that then make it so that they can never say that our system itself, our government itself, is broken and is naturally corrupted by big money and politics, and by just the sort of the rules of the game of how business and the economy and politics work today. They'll never say that because they're owned by the folks who are winning. So they're never going to tell you. It's like in a board game. If you're playing a board game and someone is winning, right, and the game's still going on, the winner of the game is not going to say, you know what, I have figured out the right system in this board game to make it so I'm winning and you're losing. And in fact, here's the way. They're never going to say, oh, here's what you should be doing to change the system, or that the rules of the game we're playing by are actually rigged for me, and they're rigged against you, and that's why you can never really win this thing. But it functions very much like a game of Monopoly. Once someone starts winning, then they just sort of destroy and take over everything. And there's really nothing you can do to stop it, at least in the context of the board game. But life itself is not a board game. We have the chance to change things, and we can't rely on our government to do it. We can't rely on mainstream media to even acknowledge that there's a solution, or that the system itself is broken, that our political system is broken, that our whole process of how we do economy and government and everything is totally flawed. They're never going to say that. So I believe the solution is that we start creating our own solutions. We start helping each other. We start supporting other people, being connected to other people, and that we stop giving our money to the big corporations. Feeding the beast that is like this whole big system of all these corporations that are basically owned by the same people, and feeding their whole machine and their whole engine. I believe my proposal is that we buy things from each other, is that we create a network of people who make a commitment to trying to buy at least the things that they know they can from other businesses just like them. It's like a people-based marketplace, a people-based community of humans buying things from humans. And I think that will change the world, because it's these centralized industrial systems of, like, you just look at food, right? It's for one, it's grown in like poor soil. It's owned by Monsanto and other big corporations that want to put chemicals in the ground, that don't really care whether the food's nutritious. They're just trying to pump out calories. Those things often go to simply make unhealthy food that's not even really good for us. Versus, and then they have to spend a bunch of time and energy to like ship it to a grocery store where it's going to sit on a shelf, so they have to like harvest it early before it's ripe, so it's not really naturally ripe, and it doesn't have the maximum like enzymes and nutrients, micronutrients in it. The soil was pretty dead. It doesn't have like living microbes in it because they pump so many like chemicals on it. That whole system's totally upside down. It should be that food is grown locally in our communities, and then the people living in that community buy that locally made food when it's in season, and are supporting the local businesses that grow it, And it's grown then to make the people in that community healthy. And then it's grown in a way not to try to extract as much profit from the people as possible, but to be sold in a way that's fair so that people can access it. Like, it should be a public good to access good, healthy food, right? Like, I think cities should just be growing their own food and have that also available as an option, right? Instead of like, sorry, you've got to juggle whether you're going to pay rent or buy food this month. Like, that's just crazy to me. You know, I think we could ask ourselves, like, how many billions of dollars does the average big city export out of their communities to, you know, Wall Street investors and stock owners and billionaires that don't need the money, when that money instead, imagine putting billions of dollars in the pockets of local people and businesses and entrepreneurs that are making things, especially things that are really like good essential goods, right? Particularly food. That's a very easy one. So my idea is to start this business directory, and eventually like a marketplace where people could buy things from local people, support local businesses, and stop sending money to people that don't need it, and instead sending money to their fellow Americans that live close to them in their own community, where they can get that food quickly and easily and fresh, and support each other. And not just food, but like, you know, all the other things. But the idea is eventually, like, all the regular daily essential service kinds of businesses, we would eventually be able to have a non-corporate option, like a non-billionaire owned option, like a locally owned business option of a place you can buy that good. I think we can do that. I believe in us. I believe that we are smart and capable. I believe that if we start this thing, we can build it, and we can start supporting each other and making good business and helping each other and paying each other well, and not just focusing on extracting profit from our community, because you're in the community. You're not taking your money and then sending it off to some random investor, right? You're like, all the money stays here. It's not like we got to shave that margin so we can send profit out of our city. No, keep it in our town and reinvest that money in our own thing, right? In our own people, in our own creativity, in our own unique original brands that carry in it the cultural stamp of the place you live in, and not this generically stamped business model that's just put everywhere and there's no such thing as local culture. It's also about connecting to the people that made the thing, like having relationships with people that live in your city that make the thing, and you get to know who they are, and there's a person behind it. So the idea is there's also a transparency where you not only know where and how it's made, who it comes from, but you can then start actually creating a relationship with those people, and you can actually trust it, right? I think this is just amazing, huge, beautiful idea. So yeah, I hope you stay tuned. I hope if you're still watching this video, I love you. Thank you for watching. Try to support local small businesses, try to support independent businesses where you can, where it makes sense, and yeah, just try to be smart about voting with your dollars. And what I want to do is just try to make that process way easier, and make it easier for, if you have a business, to make it easier for you to sell your business products that you make or services, and not have to compete with these big corporations that don't need the money, right? This is about a human-based society where human values are really valued. That's the goal. I think that's possible today. I think that's the solution. I think we can do it. All right, love you, peace, take care.